Hello and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. We're up to Innistrad, so you can see lots of stuff to look at. So stuff to keep a lookout for. We've got double face cards in the set. We've got curses. We have a graveyard matters theme and a human matters theme. In terms of keywords and ability words, well, there's flashback, there is transform, there is fight, and there is morbid. There's 264 cards in the set, 15 basic lands, 107 commons, 67 uncommons, 59 rares, and 16 mythic rares. The other thing we'll be doing is there is a tribal theme beyond just the humans matters. So there's 5 main tribes that are split over allied coloured pairs. So spirits in white and blue, zombies in blue and black, vampires in black and red, werewolves and wolves in red and green, and humans primarily in green and white, but you'll see in a moment. So when I go through this, I'll go through my normal thing of slicing through the colours, the 5 colours, but then we'll look at those 5 tribes as well. So we'll have a quick look and we'll just flick through, get a feel for the artwork. Obviously it's a horror themed set. It's top-down design. So designed with flavour in mind first, and then moulding mechanics to fit the concept. And of course you can see that reflected in the artwork. You notice here's our double face cards, which we'll be looking at in a moment. And as we go through the colours, you'll see in a moment. So you can see there's a lot of monocoloured cards. We've got a smattering of multicoloured, and then we've got the artefacts, so equipment, regular artefacts and creature artefacts in there. And then we've got a number of non-basic lands in addition to the basics here. So I'm not sure at what point they started this, but you'll notice generally as we move through later sets in Magic, there's definitely a reduction in the number of multiple artworks. So I think I mentioned there's 15 basic lands here as opposed to the sort of 20 that we may have been seen before in large sets. So that's something to bear in mind going forward. We have 9 reprints in the set. And a couple of those reprints are actually non-basics. And then we've got 240 new cards that were new at that point in Magic's history. We have 22 cards which are or have no colour to cast, and that obviously excludes lands here. And I don't think, let's have a look, there's any colours in any casting costs here, or any on the artefacts, any mechanics or anything like that that requires requires you to be spending a coloured mana to activate it. That won't necessarily be the case when we come to look at the coloured cards. So 211 cards with a single, which are mono-coloured in the casting cost. And you'll notice there are a number of cards where in this case the flashback cost doesn't match the colour in the casting cost. And we'll see how that manifests itself, whether that manifests in cycles and stuff like that. And then we have 5 cards which are multicoloured. So we've got Garruk Relentless, which is a double-sided card, Geist of Saint Truft, Evil Twin, Grimgrin Corpseborn, and Olivia Voldaren. Okay, so just quickly looking through and getting an overview of white creatures. So you can see we've got a number of humans in white, and also soldiers, and some spirits, and other things such as griffins, and a couple of angels, and a hound here. But yeah, you can see they're mainly spirits and humans as the main creature type. Now, of course, in addition to that, you may notice that if we look at, say, a flip card, you can see there's also a creature type on the flip side as well, but we'll be looking at those a bit more in a moment. So in blue, we have a number of humans. We've got creature subtypes of wizard, rogues, and I don't know whether we have many warriors. You can also see we have some spirits and also some zombies. And if I mentioned, the zombies were in blue in this set, in addition to black. Moving on to black, zombies and vampires mainly. We've got the odd bat and some insects. A couple of demons. And also you'll notice there may be the odd tribe which you see outside of the two main colours. They were sort of a primary thing. In red, vampires is one. The reason why that's here is because it's red on the flip side. And that was another thing, is some of these cards could be one colour on one side and another colour on the other. And we've also got wolves and werewolves in red. And some interesting combinations here, like human rogue werewolf, human warrior werewolf. And you'll notice that on these transformation cards. So I think I'm right in saying if we look down, all of the werewolves here, I suppose no surprise, are transform cards. Or double face cards. In green, more wolves and werewolves. Again, notice a transform here. Humans putting in appearance, as they were almost across all colours, I think, and we'll see in a moment what they appeared. Got the odd boar plant. And oh yes, of course, humans were, was it green-white? I believe, anyway. So yeah, so we're seeing quite a number of humans here, but again, you know, the odd spirit, and werewolves are red-green, so obviously they're in here. Worms and snakes. Do we get any spiders? I've got a couple of plants. Oh, there's one. So how many was that? That was 25 for that, for the green creatures, 24 for red, 26 black, 26 blue, and 27 white. So roughly, and you'll notice some are either transform and could also be in another colour, and also the, you know, 2 colour cards. So as you know, I'm always interested in big spells, as of Eldrazi. So we've got 4 where the casting cost, the CMC, was more than 6. So double face cards. There's 20, so this is the regular face. So you can see at the beginning of your upkeep, you might. So each one of them had this transform that could get triggered based on certain criteria being met. And you'll notice we've got double face cards across all the colours. There's 20 of those. Not surprising. Here's the flip sides of those cards. So there were curses in the set. There were 6 curses. One in blue, 2 in black, and 3 in red. So not across the whole colour pie. 42 cards which have a reference to the graveyard somewhere in the rules text. Somewhere in the rules text. Now, moving on to individual tribes, just so we can see here. So 13 vampires in the set, and you can see they're in black and red. So there's no overspill into any other colours with vampires. With zombies, 13 zombies, blue and black. No overspill. Again, we've got a 2 colour. What's this? A zombie warrior. And if you noticed, for the vampires, there was a black-red vampire. So I've included wolves and werewolves in here. If we include both, there's 15. And you can see they're in red and green. If we were to take out the wolves and just have the werewolves, we go down to 12. But 15 if you include wolves in there with werewolves. 15 spirits. White, blue, but there is an overspill into black and green. And there is also a white, blue legendary creature. Do we have... Interesting. No, we don't. It'd be interesting to see where the legendary creatures were in terms of both legendary creatures and legendary planeswalkers. Now, our spirits, humans, 46 humans. As I mentioned, white and green were the 2 main colours, I believe. But as is the nature of the tribe, there's overspill into multiple other colours. So we've got blue humans, we've got black humans, and we've got red humans. And some of these as well are combinations. So, you know, we've got human werewolves in here, in fact, quite a number. Including a mono white human cleric, which is a legendary. Now, 16 cards specifically reference humans somewhere in the rules text. So you can see they're checking for the presence of humans, or there might be a criteria which it says it can't be blocked by humans, those sort of things. So there's something that checks for the presence of humans somewhere in the zones, or as a result of something moving zones in the game. We've got Flashback in the set. So with Flashback, you can see, if we look at Divine Reckoning, and there's 29 Flashback cards, we've got 2 and 2 white to cast, but there's a Flashback cost here. So for 5 and 2 white, we can cast this from your graveyard for its Flashback cost, and then we exile it. You'll also notice that a few of the cards have a different colour of mana in their Flashback cost to their casting cost, and I'm sure we'll revisit those later in this episode. We've got 21 cards with transform on them, and we'll see here, reference transform in the Oracle text. So something I'm sure you're curious about is, if we go back to our original double face list, we had 20 there for our transform, for our double faced, but we've got 21 transform cards, so there must be a card in here that references transform but doesn't flip, and yeah, it's Moon Mist. So transform all humans, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures other than werewolves and wolves. So it's a transform initiator. So that's why that is. We've got 2 cards with fight in them. Target creature you control fights, target creature you don't control, so each deals damage equal to its power to the other. And this has it on the flip side. We've got Morbid in here, so with Morbid, there you can see on here there is a commonality, which is if a creature died this turn. So you can see what Morbid triggers is different on different cards, but you only activate the ability if a creature died this turn, and if it did die, then you can activate the Morbid ability. You can see that's in black, red and green. Include one that's an instant. The rest are all, oh, there's a sorcery there. The rest are all creatures. I don't see any. No, yeah. So 9 of those. We've got a cycle of flashback cards, so moving on to cycles now. And for these are the ones where the colour in the casting cost and the colour in the flashback cost are the same, and they're all at rare. So you can see there's our flashback cost versus the casting cost. Once we flush that back, then we have to exile it. There was also a cycle of allied flashback cards, and these were at common, so the flashback cost for these was in a different colour. And then the next cycle is the enemy flashback cards. So again, different colour than the casting cost, but they're in enemy colours, and these are uncommon. So the common ones were in allied colours, the uncommon ones were in enemy colours, and the rare ones were in the same colour. We've got a cycle of allied utility lands, so they're at rare, and they tap for 1 colourless mana, or you can activate this utility, this ability on here, using both colours of an allied pair to have an effect. So white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, and then green, white. And one would hope that that colour combination synergizes somewhat, because obviously in this set, because of the tribal aspect and other things, you know, they're probably wanting people to draft to the tribes. We've then got a cycle of tap lands, so lands that can produce either colour of an enemy coloured pair and come into play tapped unless the player controls a land with a basic land type of either colour. So this completes the 10 card cycle, where we had an allied colour tap lands introduced in Magic 2010 and reprinted multiple times in subsequent core sets. So this is the other bit, this is the enemy colour pair. Now of course these were a rare. You can see here, enters the battlefield unless you control a plains or a swamp in the case of Isolated Chapel, and then you get the appropriate combination for the others of the cycle. And that's it as far as the regular cycle's concerned. So not a ton of cycles, because a lot of the, you know, when we slice through sets like this, it's always interesting to see. I spend more time like slicing to the tribal aspect than I do necessarily the cycles. And we've seen sets like that before, which have a heavy tribal theme in them. Not always the case, but certainly in many of the sets we've seen like that. So we've got a vertical cycle of blue uncosted creatures that require creature cards to be exiled from the graveyard to be cast. Armoured Scab bears a similar name and is also a blue zombie, but it does not share the same effect. So here we've got, in this vertical cycle, we've got Makeshift Mauler and Stitch Drake, both are common. So with vertical cycles they go down the rarity. We've got Scab Goliath, which is our uncommon, and then Scab Ruinator, which is our rare. And you can see here there's this additional casting cost, because, you know, with just the casting cost we're getting a 5/6 for 1 and 2 blue. So we've got to do something about that, so we have an alternative casting cost here. You can also cast this from your graveyard. We've got a vertical cycle of Bloodsuckers, Bloodcrazed Neonate, Rakish Hare, and then at rare we've got Falconwrath Marauders and Stormkirk Noble. So the red vampires have become more powerful when they deal damage to an opponent. And Curse of Stalk Prey and Stormkirk Patrol, which you don't see here, have similar abilities. I believe the set also had like a mega cycle across the block So if we go back here, this cycle was continued across the block as a whole. And there are also a number of flashback spells which we haven't seen necessarily, or we saw them when we looked at flashback, but we've not seen them as cycles, which are part of make up a part of a cycle if you consider Innistrad and Dark Ascension together as a whole. So 16 mythics in this set. Let me just check I didn't make a mistake there when I first... Yeah, 16 mythics. 2 at white, 2 at blue, 3 at black, 2 reds, 3 greens, 3 multicolours, and this artifact. And you can see a number of them mythic are also legendary creatures and legendary planeswalkers. Here's our 15 basic lands. Nice horror themed artwork. We've got 12 non-basics, and you've seen the cycles for this already. So if we ignore the cycles, what do we have left? So we've got Ghost Quarter and I believe Shimmering Grotto, which would be right because that's 12, so 12 minus 10 is 2. So Ghost Quarter, you can see it's a reprint, and Shimmering Grotto is a reprint as well. It's a sort of filter mana fixer, and this you can use to blow up lands, any land. You can use it on yourself if you feel so inclined, as a form of fixing. So interesting utility. Here's our 7 legendaries. So you can see here we have 2 planeswalkers. We've got Liliana and we've got Garruk. We've got 4 creatures, so mono-coloured, a white-blue, a blue-black and a black-red. So that answers my question that we didn't see legendary creatures in all of the combinations. Only 3 out of the 5. But saying that, Garruk Relentless was in green, black, and you can see there's definitely a wolf stroke werewolf theme here, which is interesting because wasn't it the case that that was not the colour combination in the set? Was it red-green? So yeah, they played around a little bit with some of these in the set, in terms of, you know, not necessarily sticking rigidly to the colour combinations. So 127 creatures in the set. We've got 12 enchantments. Including Parallel Lives. You can see we've got a token thing going on here. So in terms of enchantments, you can see Bonds of Faith, Ghostly Possession. Got some curses here, which were auras. Five artifact creatures. 11 pieces of equipment, and all very thematic to the set. We had 6 just regular artifacts, although one was a legendary artifact. Got Traveller's Amulet. Always interesting to see what sort of artifact mana fixing is present in the set. We've got 33 instants. We've seen several of the flashbacks here, and if I scroll through, you'll just sort of see like the usual sort of things that the colours are doing, but given a little of, you know, a little thematic twist or playing to certain themes and mechanics of the set. But again, the sort of things you'd expect to see as support cards in a large set at instant speed. "29 sorceries." And again you can see a number of flashback cards. Some interesting damage spells in this set as well. And we have Melch in here as well, and Spider Spawning. So I'm sure people that played at the time, a lot of this brings back memories of certain decks, be it, you know, common decks or niche decks. And then we have on back to the set. Now, one thing I wanted to just check, because I didn't really do it, so I'm going to go back to, where are we, the tribes. I just want to see if we can see, you know, was there a thing going on here. We've definitely got a counter thing going on with the vampires in terms of +1/+1 counters. For the zombies, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's these references to counters across the tribes. And because of the presence of werewolves in red and green, of course you're more likely to see, as we look through here on that particular tribe, you know, a number of transform cards. And then for the spirits, yeah, so a lot of flyers, blue-white flyers, and then back to humans, which, as I've mentioned, were across the set. So we've got we've got both tokens and +1/+1 counters going on here. But there does seem to be a lot of sort of thematic, you know, themes here that are in play across the different colours and the different tribes. So in terms of the expensive cards, so Liliana of the Veil, most expensive, currently 76 bucks. Parallel Lives, no surprise there, hasn't been reprinted a ton of times. Snapcaster Mage, 29 bucks. Balefire Dragon, 22. Bloodline Keeper, 17. Olivia Voldaren's 12. Grimgrin, and then we get to 8. So we get a sudden sort of drop, I suppose. So what was that? 5 cards above. Just go down to 4 cards above $20, and then another couple above 10, and then we get on to Grimgrin. And then no surprise to then see these dual lands. In terms of stuff that's popular on the EDH Rec site for the ranking side of things, Blasphemous Act, obviously these dual lands, Ghost Quarter, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Venture of the Meek, and then we've got those utility lands, and we've got Parallel Lives and enchantments like this as well. Okay, moving on to the intro packs. So with the intro packs, we also had event decks as well. So let's just look at the colour breakdown here. So you can see we've got, and we've seen this before, so 3 of the pre-constructed intro decks are in allied colours, and then the remaining 2 are in enemy colours. So interesting that they did that. So we have a black-red vampire tribal deck with Falconwrath, Marauders and Curse of the Stalked Prey. We have a black-green that focuses on Morbid. And I suppose that's what happened with the set is you know, there were a couple of things going, well, more than a couple of things, but you know, I suppose you could opt to play tribal, or you could go for or you know, tribal in the appropriate colours, which were generally mostly allied colours. But then you could also go for decks that were built around the keywords and abilities, which tended to bleed into other colours. So in this case we've got Morbid, and this is black-green. So we've got Skurg's Dag, High Priest and Mordegraph Monstrosity. I don't see anything particularly spectacular in terms of the fixing. I'm just looking to see. We do have a Traveller's Amulet in here. So that's how that's being done in that deck at least. We've got a red-blue here, this Flashback, so another one where not allied colours, but based around one of the themes and mechanics, or themes and abilities of the set. So that's Sturmgeist and Charmbreaker Devils, And then we've got green-white humans with Elder of Laurels and Mentor of the Meek. And as I pointed out before, as you get through the block, you'll see cards in intro packs from earlier sets that would have still been standard legal at the time. And then this one, which is White Blue Spirits, so it says Geist Honoured Monk. I'm not sure, where was it? Angel of Flight Alabaster was the other rare in here. So yeah, not doing a lot of these decks. There's no real fixing. And you also get like suggestions as well as to how to improve the deck. Now, we also had these event decks. So there was two again, I believe. Yep. One was a green, blue, black Graveyard Matters themes, but of course with these the net was spread a lot wider, beyond the block, and beyond, and possibly beyond core sets as well, to anything that would have been standard legal at the time. So you can see we've got a bit of fixing as well here. And we get a lot more rares. And of course a sideboard. Hold the Line was a white deck focusing on humans, so it's mono white. And you'll notice here we have, like I said, some cards which were clearly not part of Innistrad from the previous block. And there's our rares. And then in terms of what's coming up this week, so we have an episode of Commander Durdle, and I wonder what's going to be our deck. Can you guess? Now I should. Oh look, there we go. So I was lucky enough in the card pool to get a Grim Green Corpseborn. So we're doing blue black Grim Grin. So going to be interesting to see what we get suggested, what rabbit hole we go down. And then on Friday we've got the usual artwork video. So again, I'm going to be a bit selective. I think I probably opened quite a lot of stuff with Innistrad, so I'll choose a few rares and mythics, and then do some of the lower rarities as well. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will see you in the next episode.